And we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Jessper Maquindang. If you're here to build a stronger team and a more effective company culture, you're in the right place. In each episode, our guests share tips, strategies, and insights to help you and your people thrive. And I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. Sumayyah Emeh-Edu is a visionary MC, experienced designer, and speaker, reimagining live events through mental health, authentic connection, and tech mindfulness. With over 20 years of experience, Sumayyah has held senior HR leadership roles at Canopy Growth and Schwab, and now serves as principal strategist of Embedded Consulting. Sumayyah has designed programming for organizations like Oracle, Tesla, Blue Shield of California, Amwell, the University of Colorado, AllBirds, TrueCar, and NPR's KQED. A certified digital wellness champion, Sumayyah creates energizing, inclusive experiences that help attendees disconnect from screens and reconnect with each other. She holds a master's degree in project management and lives in the Denver metro area with her daughter. Let's welcome Sumayyah Emeh-Edu. Sumayyah, very excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Jessper.
And I'm very excited about today's topic, this idea of tech mindfulness in the workplace. Sumayyah, can you tell us more about the research and data in this field and the work you do?
Yeah, so tech mindfulness, it is really just about using our technology in a more mindful way, right? That is the precipice of it. We know that we cannot live without technology. However, our technology is taking over our life. Unintentional use is taking over our lives and deeply impacting our ability to be productive. It's negatively impacting our mental health, and it is stealing our attention and making it harder for us to be able to focus on what we're doing. So that's kind of the crux of what tech mindfulness is. There's a lot of different words for it, but again, this isn't about digital detoxing or anything like that. It's about how can we use phones in a way that actually help us and not disrupt, distract, or make us sick. So that's the principle of it. When we think about what this means in the workplace, it means a lot of different things, right? But I would say a couple things that are really important is the area, the time we're living in. We have a mental health crisis going on where individuals, especially young people, are being impacted, in really grave ways. We have a loneliness epidemic and divisiveness in terms of our global discourse and political discourse and culture wars is the highest it's ever been as well. And that is, it's not by design. I think it's an unintended consequence of just living our lives online and not in real life. So that is, to me, it's kind of like the biggest thing that's impacting us in the workplace, but we don't really talk about it. It's not something we talk about. All I hear from folks is like, I feel like I always have to be on. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling burnt out. And those are things that we can definitely do something about, but I don't think many of us understand the impact that technology is having on us. So I have a bunch of statistics, but I just kind of wanted to just share the precipice of what we're all talking about.
Absolutely. Let's take a deeper dive. Could you share some of the stats that you have with you?
Yeah. So as someone who was in HR at an executive level, again, I think it's the biggest thing impacting the way that we work, but we're not really talking about it. So WebMD did a big study this year, and they had seen a 14% drop in excellent mental health ratings from the previous year. That's huge. And what's crazy is the biggest drop in scores, or the lowest scores among employees, were among young employees and employees that were remote. So if you think about those two populations, young employees are digital natives, so they are all on their phones all the time. They have grown up with phones in their hands. And remote employees are all online, and they don't have that connection point of like being together. So that's one statistic that I think is huge. Also, despite the increasing mental health crisis, EAP programs, the programs that are there to support employees and provide counseling, they're still at only about a 5% average utilization at companies. So again, we have a mental health crisis going on, but our use of mental health services are not increasing. So why is that happening, right? And then the last thing is that according to some like a big sample study of burnout is costing organizations anywhere from $4,000 to $20,000 a year. So when we think about the investments, that companies can do to address, we can't just leave employees to do things on their own, right? And when we look at productivity, when people are lonely, when they're depressed, when they are not in a good mental health state, they aren't being their best employees. And we also know the distractions that computer will bring. The other one stat I want to provide is that it can take anyone, while they're doing deep work, creative work, thinking work, it can take them up to 23 minutes to refocus and get back into what they were doing to the same level. So think about how that's impacting our ability to get real work done when half of all interruptions are self-inflicted, meaning we are interrupting ourselves, and it can take us 23 minutes to get back. And if we got dings and pings going off all the time, think about what that is doing to the productivity in the workplace for the average employee.
Sumayyah, those are shocking statistics and absolutely valuable valuable aspects to consider. I was looking into the research as well, and I wanted to get your thoughts on these. And I discovered from the Business Insider, they realized that the average employee sends over 50 messages outside normal working hours, with nearly 20% working on weekends, even checking emails on Sunday mornings and evenings. Sumayyah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. One of the big things that is happening is there's so many interruptions, and our apps are with us all the time that we have access to work when we don't even want to work. We're checking emails during concerts, excuse me. We are afraid to be out of the office. Like, even if we are going to a work event or we're on vacation, the Slack is with us all the time. The email is with us all the time. So when we don't have tech mindfulness, it actually encroaches on our ability to have standard work times. And technology is so addictive. It's built off of game slot machine technology. So when we have that constant habit of checking things and getting that kind of dopamine ping, it actually becomes addictive. I do a lot of deleting apps and tech mindfulness and all that, but I still do have LinkedIn on my phone. I don't have social networking. And even this weekend, I caught myself opening up LinkedIn. Why? Because it's on my phone. You know what I mean? Like, I even have a limit on it, but I'm still on it on a Saturday morning because it's a habit to scroll.
Sumayyah, excellent points. Mm-hmm. And Actually, did you want to continue? Was there something else you wanted to add?
No. But to your point, it gives us less boundaries. It's a habit, and it's not a habit that happens on its own. It happens by design.
Excellent point, Sumayyah. And on that note, research from Deloitte, they discovered that 75% of workers say working from home increased their sense of digital overload. And a follow-up report discovered that over half of employees feel that they're always on and they're mentally fatigued by all of this technology. Wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, 100. I was trying to I am working on doing my taxes for my business and just getting a whole bunch of stuff together. And I just thought about how complicated even that process is, right? And all the information you have to get, all the systems, and like it's so cumbersome. And when you think about when you think about working remotely, it provides convenience. A lot of us, because there's a loneliness epidemic, are may not want to be around people, even though people energize and make us feel good. And we know loneliness begets more loneliness, right? So there are advantages to working at home. I'm not saying there isn't, but when you have that constant on screen connection and you don't have the breaks where you're seeing people and you're not looking at a screen, that is huge. And again, it's not just about like, there's nothing wrong. This is an intentional form of using technology. You and I'm in Denver, you're in California, and we are having a conversation that is related to both of our works. This is intentional. Using Zoom for a meeting is intentional. However, what is unintentional is all the notifications, is all of the dings and pings, is you're scrolling on LinkedIn because maybe you are just want to look at like what's going on in the work world, but you're offered all these different things that take you down rabbit holes. That's unintentional. That's not what you plan to do for your day. And when you have more time at home, where you don't have the breaks where you can have the water cooler talk, where you're not looking at the screen, when you're not just responding to dings and pings, and you can actually talk to people and get the warm fuzzies that you get just by being and having human connection, not just talking to AI all day, it's very lonely. And I think we have to just get back to having more human-centered experiences, because it is unfortunate the ways that even AI is even increasing that tech use even more, to where people are asking advice of AI more than they are of actual humans. So that's kind of scary.
Sumayyah, those are excellent points to consider. And there was one more
Mm-hmm.
piece of research I wanted to share, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So, from software company Rescue Time, speaking of constantly being on and all these pings and dings, Rescue Time discovered that employees check email or their messages every 6 minutes on average. Wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Why do we need to check our email every 6 minutes? Why? Again, because of my age, I have lived in an environment where your emails were not the most important thing. An email is someone else's agenda. It's a piece of information. You don't know if it's important or not. And oftentimes we don't have communication. So what I help organizations do is put together communication frameworks for how they are going to communicate as a company. And this means, how are we going to use email? How are we going to use meetings? How are we going to use IMs and Slacks and all of that to communicate what we need? Why do we need a reminder every time we get an email? We don't. We could check our email when we're ready to check our email. If it's a true emergency, then let's say IMs are only used for emergencies, right? We can decide as an organization how we are going to use technology, because the challenge is we've given all these systems and devices to our employees, but we've never shown them how to use them effectively. efficiently, or for the means of a tool to be more productive as opposed to being interrupted all the time, right? Think about that. The things that we give employees to do their job, we've never trained them or supported them to how to use them effectively. Instead, we spend our days, instead of working and getting things done and spending 100% of our day getting things done, we spend a lot of our day checking and looking at notifications and interruptions. That's not effective.
Sumayyah, those are excellent points. And as we have looked through the research and statistics, let's take a deeper dive. And Sumayyah, I'd like to learn more about your journey. What gave you the inspiration to jump into the world of tech mindfulness?
Yeah. So I am a former VP of DEI, and I got into DEI work about 2015, right before the 2016 election. And I knew there was a lot coming out at the time around the harms of technology. There was the big ethics organization. There were some whistleblowers at some of the big tech companies about how addictive it was. And it was this moment where I'm like, I'm seeing trauma. I do very hard work, right? And I am responding to racist messages from, presidential candidates. I am responding to Black people getting killed in the street. I am responding to all these harms in the world. And I knew it was making me anxious. And it was a point where I read all the information on why technology was harmful. I knew how it made me feel. And then the crowning moment is when I would post something that I didn't think was that exciting and I'd get tons of views. And then I'd post something that was like super, I thought was revelatory. And like it would irritate me because I didn't get as many views. And I was like, oh, this isn't good for me. Like it's one thing to read it, right? And read the data, but to like really honestly assess myself. Oh, I'm having FOMO. Oh, I know this is making me more depressed by looking at all the trauma in the world, right? So that's when I started kind of digitally detoxing, or like social media diets. Like there's so many words for these things. That's when I started. So over 10 years ago. And recently, with DEI and what's happened there and me losing my career. And then I also had burnout due to, I'm a single mother to a child with extreme severe special needs, which made her very violent. I would have a lot of envy being on social media, because again, it's a journey, where I'd be on social media and I knew it was making me feel worse. So when I finally just decided to get help, and like I knew I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, I deleted all the apps. And you know what I did? I used technology to put together a WhatsApp group of my closest friends and family to tell them that I wasn't doing okay. And that group became my lifeline. And people came to visit me and they came to support me. One, because I asked for the help, but secondly, because I was using technology to reach out for that help in a very specific way. And my community came there to support me. And what caused me to start doing this as my job was, again, I had known for 10 years that technology was harmful. But I learned that we have a loneliness epidemic and not everybody has a community that they can call. And that alarmed me. I'm like, why do we have a loneliness epidemic, first of all? And why don't people have people they can call? And I saw how much technology had an impact on community, on human connection, on centering humanness and not being so transactional. Then I was like, okay, I've got to do something about this. So I got a digital wellness certificate and I started building a business around how we can use tech mindfulness and the power of connection to improve employee experience and our mental health within the workplace. And that's kind of what got me started on the journey. And I'm super excited to even just have moments like this where I get to share it with other people.
Sumayyah, thank you for sharing your story. Very inspirational as you shared what you've gone through. And speaking of which, you brought up a valuable point, this idea of asking for help. How important is it in times of tech mindfulness and this loneliness epidemic and seeking connection? Wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is lonely when you're having a mental health crisis. I had a lot of friends in community and I let them all know what's going on to the point I was comfortable with. But, it requires vulnerability. And I was one of those people who just could do everything alone and I'm fine and I'm fine. Literally, there's a fire behind me and I'm like, no, it's all fine. It's great, And I think it takes a lot of bravery and courage to admit you're not doing okay. It takes, like, nobody wants to admit they're lonely. Nobody wants to admit that. But it is easy to even feel lonely when you have people around you, because for me, my situation was so unique. None of my friends had a high needs, special needs child that they were raising by themselves. Nobody. But that didn't mean they couldn't support me. It was my pride. It was my challenges around vulnerability that really stopped me from really crying out for help earlier. But I'm glad I did it when I did, because I was having very dark thoughts. And that's the challenge. When you're suffering in silence and you can't admit that, it just begets more loneliness and isolation. And when I reached out for help, my friends asked, well, what do you need? How can I help you? And some of them forced me, family members, to take care of myself. And I'm stubborn, I'm hard-headed, but I just had to let go and let people take care of me. And I'm going to be honest, Jessper, I wouldn't be here had I not just let go. We pushed ourselves, we compare ourselves against other people, and I am just a human and I'm just doing the best that I can. And it's okay to get support and help.
Sumayyah, thank you for sharing. There is so much value in what you just expressed. And I want to jump into the comments. We do have something from Stephen J. Stephen, thank you for tuning in. He said, our conversation, this is critical. We need to have an intentional mode of use for each of these communication tools. Thank you for sharing that, Stephen. Sumayyah, wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so intentionality is huge. The best line I learned actually from Stephen is that, when we're at work and we are, working on, let's say, a PowerPoint, building a PowerPoint, our PowerPoint isn't constantly dinging us and asking us, hey, do you want to go and, work on something else, or this other presentation needs help. He used the example of when you use Google intentionally, it helps you get from place A to B. It doesn't say, okay, now that you've arrived here, do you want to go grab something to eat? There's 5 great restaurants around, and it's continually asking you for attention and disrupting you to get you to go do what it wants you to do, not what you want to do. And again, think about that in the example of the PowerPoint. How many times are we interrupted and get distracted and go do something else instead of finishing our PowerPoint? Right? Again, intentional use versus unintentional use. We have to take back our time. We have to take back our day. We have to use technology, not allow it to manage our days and our lives for us. Right? So thank you, Stephen, for the question.
It's my excellent perspective. And Stephen, thank you for tuning in. And let's take a deeper dive. Now that we've heard your story, Sumayyah, when we look at this idea of tech mindfulness and this idea of connection, Why do you feel it's much more important that leaders should prioritize this in today's society?
Because we're not talking about it. All we're talking about is the AI revolution right now, and how to optimize, and how AI can help us, and how it's revolutionary. And we are completely ignoring there's a mental health crisis. I think a lot of people and employees are blaming burnout on companies, right? I feel like I'm always connected. Why do we feel like we're always connected? Has our companies explicitly told us you need to be answering Slack messages at 8 o'clock at night? Have they? Do we expect people to get back to us right away when we send them an email? Did anyone tell us that, or are we just all operating on the fact that we assume it's happening? And anytime I tell people this in a work situation, they're like, well, that's what my company expects of me. My boss is slacking me at this time. I'm getting an email at midnight. So I feel like I have to respond to it. So ultimately, organizations create the environment that their employees can thrive in the best. And we aren't doing that if we're ignoring tech mindfulness. It is not only impacting bottom line productivity, it's impacting us in terms of absenteeism, in productivity, in what we're able to get done, and most of all, our relationships at work, right? Transactional communication happens when you're just emailing and slacking. Has anyone else, or Jessper, have you been on an email chain where you don't even know what's happening? And it's like, can someone just pick up the phone? Right? We are human. We get most of our communication through nonverbal cues. When we're not on video, when we aren't talking, when we're primarily engaging through written communication, a lot gets lost in translation. How do we maximize those times together? Where in our meetings, organizations have to set the tone by saying, what if we all had a tech check policy at organizations where at the beginning of each meeting, whoever's leading that meeting reminded people to turn their notifications off, close their browsers they don't need, and to be present? Like, how often does that happen? And we start with small talk just to check in with each other. Because that's what happens when we get together. No one's going to sit there in a meeting that they're with in a small conference room with 7 people and just do this while they're in the meeting. No, because we give each other attention. But instead, we see this during meetings where we're not even giving each other our attention. Think about how that impacts our productivity. How do you feel, honestly? How do you feel when you are trying to discuss something and you know someone's not paying attention? Like, it doesn't feel good. Oh, I just got to answer this. Oh, there's an email that came through. Like, it makes you feel like you're not the most important. And how does that affect our ability to get work done together? Because that is how we create psychological safety, is letting people know that they matter, that they have our attention, and that they can communicate with us honestly about how they're doing and how they're feeling. That's centering human connection in the workplace. So companies have to model that. They can't just say, oh, we don't want you working late. They have to model it. This is what we expect. We want your notifications off. If something's an emergency, I am, but that's the only time you use it. You're not going to receive any emails from us after 5. As a leader, I've learned that when I had teams, I would delay the delivery or turn off the actual internet connection while I'm doing emails. So when I plugged it back in, then it sent them, right? There's all these things you can do to show that I respect your time and our time together is meaningful. Otherwise, we just stay in the same habits, right? Of checking, of the dings and pings, and we keep disrespecting each other, not just even because we want to, but because everybody else is doing it.
Excellent point, Sumayyah. And you brought up a very valuable topic when you shared more about that type of situation, and that was psychological safety. Could you tell us more about that from your perspective?
Yeah. So humans build trust by connection. We do it a couple ways. We do it by sharing our stories, sharing things about ourselves through hobbies. You know, when the organizations have the pizza parties, it is not about the pizza or the party. It's about you getting together to talk about something other to work than work to get to know one another, right? But unfortunately, they don't explain that. They just say, "Hey, there's pizza, you shouldn't be complaining." Right? Like that's why we need structured engagement, especially with mental health being such a risk right now. People who are neurodivergent or have mental health problems aren't always able to engage. Small talk is terrifying for some people, right? Especially when they have social anxiety, that fear. So let's give them something to do. Hey, we're going to have a pizza party and it's going to be all about talking about our pets. Or like it doesn't matter what we talk about, honestly, just as long as we are talking and we get the time to be listened to and we get to share. And what happens when we get so used to online communication, Jesper, have you looked in the comment section of a social media post lately? Do you know what's in there?
Uh,
Honestly, like I'm asking you, what is often in the comments of a topic on social media? What kind of comments are there? Are they always nice?
well, in social media, it can be mixed. There can be some rough comments. There can be some playful comments. It's all a mix. But
It is a
yeah.
mix. But if you and I were sharing with each other, is it a mix usually? No,
Oh.
because we give each other respect. Online communication is teaching us to be more transactional, to not be human centered. And because you have anonymity, it brings out the worst of people's behavior, right? So, how do we center human connection in how we communicate with each other? So, the more we talk to one another instead of type to one another, we learn simple human principles of active listening, of asking follow up questions, of how to have conversations. And these are things that young Gen Z employees don't have a lot of experience with because they spend a lot of their time like this. We have to practice communication. We have to practice how to overcome conflict. This all requires practice. And if we don't do it and we're just typing to one another, we aren't able to really center human connection and build trust with one another, because that is what psychological safety is about.
Sumayyah, those are excellent points. And let's take a deeper dive. Uh, we've talked about this idea of a human-centered workplace, and I was curious, Sumayyah, from your perspective, what does a truly human-centered workplace look like?
That's a really great question. I would say it's when we are valuing connection. And the times that we gather, we are gathering with intention. We're having novel moments, even if it's virtual, where we can, you know, share, where we can comment, where we can have joy and have fun. Because that is how humans, again, build psychological safety. And it's how we connect and learn about each other and how to best, you know, really engage with one another. So a human centered workplace is not AI first, it's human first. It's what are the crucial evolutionary components that we all need as humans to thrive. And it's building your workplace around those. And that means using technology intentionally, mindfully, and as a tool, not as a disruptor, not as a proxy, and not as a way for us to have less time with one another, but it makes our time more meaningful with one another. Again, technology can be present, but how do we go off of the principles of what our most valuable resource to any company is, which is our people?
Sumayyah, excellent insights. And let's talk about this idea of increasing engagement, especially in the workplace. What common mistakes do you see organizations making when they are trying to increase engagement?
Yeah, I think, again, not having a tech communication plan. We just have all these systems and we don't tell people how to use them to be human first and to effectively engage. And I'm tired of everybody saying, well, people should know. Again, culture is built by what we allow to happen and by leadership not modeling it. 58% of leaders check their email or browsers while they're on a call with other people. 58%. So what is our leadership modeling? The other thing about, and Jessper, really quickly, could you repeat the question again? Because I've already lost it.
Absolutely. What common mistakes do you see when organizations try to increase engagement?
Yes. The second way that organizations, mistakes that they make is they don't make the virtual experience on par with the in-person experience. I've done some return to office workshops where there was a lot of intentionality put around, are we going to have lunches? There are clubs, there are ERG events. There are different things that we can do to provide connection and engagement for employees when we're together. And they're kind of hard to miss because you're with each other, right? But online, we don't put the same amount of effort into the online engagement experience. They should be on par. And this is why we have to make our meetings and the way we gather meaningful, because we can't just rely on employees to opt in. I've worked at some companies where they have amazing benefits, yoga, even online, clubs, and like engagement's low, people are lonely, but they won't actually go to the events. Because guess what? When we're struggling mentally or we're lonely, it is hard to go to something or to add one more thing to our plate. So how do we make the times that we already have together, like our all hands, our trainings, our meetings, our check-ins, more meaningful? So it gets people more engaged, so they're more likely to attend the yoga class. I am on a mission to make team building mandatory monthly, whether you're virtual or in person. We should be doing an activity every month to connect as humans and not just leave it up to people to navigate connection on their own. We know how important human connection is to collaboration, to innovation. So we have to, again, virtually make the time for it rather than just hoping it's going to happen. Hope is not a strategy. So that's another mistake people make. And I think the last mistake is that I think companies think that we're going to solve this mental health and engagement crisis by just offering more. We saw that employee EAP usage is only at 5%. 5% at people at every company on average are using mental health counseling. Only 5%. Yet 60% of people will have a mental health situation in your life. 60%. So again, what kind of message do we send when we're just talking about work and we're sending emails and Slacks at 8:00 at night, but we're not, and we offer a bunch of services and that no one's using, and we're just like, oh, well. How do you create a culture of wellness? How do you use your meetings, your leaders, and other things to ensure that your employees are getting the support and mental health resources that they need, even if they don't think they need them? I know it's crazy, but you have to create the culture around it in order to increase your utilization. It's not about offering more, it's about going deeper and ensuring you have higher utilization, not offering more.
Sumayyah, very valuable insights. And on that note, how can leaders better model tech mindful behavior?
Yeah. So I'm going to use this example of what Aetna did for mindfulness. So Aetna Healthcare, their CEO had a traumatic ski accident and had depression and was suicidal and had all kind of chronic pain. And meditation had saved his life. So he started it helped him, and he knew engagement scores are low and all these other things at their company were low. So he's like, well, why don't I bring mindfulness into the company? So one leader led. It's not just that they had, lots of companies have a meditation class here and there you can go to. It's not about that. It was that they decided they were going to make it a part of the culture. So they started offering mindfulness programs, mindful breathing, meditation, yoga throughout the company. And all the leaders got involved. The leaders started instituting these in terms of some of their meetings. And they started to create a culture where everything was about being mindful of yourself and mindful of others. They had a 28% decrease in stress. 20% of those employees were sleeping better. And there's one more statistic. I can't remember right now, but one other good thing happened. And that's just in the first year. Okay. So think about that impact of just being present, which is what tech mindfulness is in. It's about being present. It's about not allowing the world to take over and me living in the present and not being distracted. So that's a great model for how we can ensure that if we have a tech check policy at our companies where we teach employees, offer programming that the leaders are involved in as well, to teach employees how to use their technology efficiently, to expect and leaders model that they are paying attention in their meetings and not looking at 5 different browsers, and they're showing what they expect, and they're delaying their emails, and they're telling people to turn off the notifications and don't even put your Slack on your phone unless you have a position that requires you to have 24/7 access, right? These are all things we could do in the workplace to not only just tell people what's good for them, but to model it. Because we all will do things. Even I get distracted. I do this work and I still get distracted. I still will think of, oh, I wonder what the population of Turkey is while I'm on a webinar, and I'll go and Google it, right? Like, it's tempting. It's about setting new habits and new expectations. It's not about being perfect though. So how can we just have environments where that's the expectation?
Sumayyah, those are excellent examples. And I want to reflect on the big picture. Sumayyah, I wanted to get your perspective on this. What are the long-term consequences if we continue to ignore tech mindfulness in the workplace?
I mean, it's already not great. We're in a mental health crisis, and I do not believe I won't say I don't believe. Science tells us that there's a direct correlation with the amount of time you spend on your phone and ADHD, depression, anxiety, period. So for me, there's no if, but when. We're already in a bad place. I believe it's going to continue to get worse if we don't stand up, and organizations have such an opportunity to have, it isn't just about the business being productive as an outcome, but like healthy people being an outcome, saving our civilization from distracted people who don't feel good and are isolating themselves. Like, that is, I think organizations have such an opportunity to do good with this opportunity. I don't want to get all doom and gloom, but like, I would say, one of the biggest uses for AI use right now is for people getting advice and mental health counseling instead of talking to people, real people, whether it's a friend or someone who is licensed to do that. And because it's interfering with our relationships, us not paying attention to each other, us being divisive, having heightened senses of social anxiety, etc. Porn addiction is one of the biggest addictions and fastest growing addictions in the US right now. Like, we're not in good shape. And it's all about using a tool so it benefits us and doesn't hurt us. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I know we're going to continue on a trajectory of poor mental health if we don't put time and energy into resolving this issue.
Sumayyah, very important aspects to consider. And let's flip the script. If every organization in the world did embrace and adopt tech mindfulness starting today, what would the future of work look like?
Yeah, the future of work would be that people feel more heard and seen at work. We are able to tell when someone is really struggling and not doing okay, and we can check in on them. I think it means that our attention spans can increase because we, I know mine has, because we're not constantly interrupted. And the skills that we learn at work are going to bleed into our personal lives. We can be more attentive to our family members. We can work on revitalizing some of our relationships. If the average person is spending 4.5 hours a day on their phone, what else could you be doing with that 4.5 hours? How could you be experiencing more joy, more mindfulness, meal prepping, right? Like taking care of your body, taking care of yourself, taking care of other people, right? Those are what make us human. When organizations can get back some of that time, work is going to get better because there's more collaboration and innovation happening. More is going to get done because productivity is increasing. And the employees are going to be healthier, so their healthcare costs are going to go down because their mental health is going to improve. And hopefully, they're spending more of that time doing things that make them feel better and are better for their health, which is like being around other people, bringing joy, and all of that. And engagement increases. And we all know how important engagement is to any organization. It is what we live and die by as humans.
Sumayyah, excellent perspective. And as we wrap up, Sumayyah, what is the best way for people to reach you should they want to learn more about you and the work you do?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. You see my name printed there, Sumayyah Emeh-Edu. I am a experience facilitator. So I do live events as well as I give workshops on tech mindfulness, burnout, the power of connection. And you can also email me. So my first name at embeddedconsultingllc.com.
Excellent. And Sumayyah, before we go, what is your final piece of wisdom for our audience?
I will say this. Listen to your body. Listen to your body and your mental health, because I ignored so many of the signs that my body was telling me that it was tired, that it was overextended, that it had anxiety, that it was depressed because I had stuff to do. I would say listen to your body, and I would say for organizations, my last advice is be a catalyst for wellness, because the role that you can play in employees' life is not only going to impact and increase your organizational culture and productivity, it helps people carry that on and they're able to expand it to the people in their lives and the people they love.
Sumayyah, excellent piece of wisdom. To everyone out there, if you know any leaders who would benefit from this conversation, please feel free to share this with them. And Sumayyah, thank you again for today's conversation. Absolutely enjoyed your perspectives, insights, and thoughts on tech mindfulness, connection, and really increasing engagement. And for everyone out there, thank you again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode.